when I got married, I thought I was a man of the world. I thought I was reasonably well educated. I got a first-class degree, for God's sake, you know. So, and I knew absolutely nothing. And the worst thing was that when I got divorced 4.5 years later, I still knew absolutely nothing.
Now we live and work together 24/7, so everything we're going to share with you, we have to apply to our lives. We've really learned that we have to do this. Because could you imagine being with someone 24/7, living and working with them? You'd have to be able to understand each other properly, wouldn't you? But when I learned everything that we have learned, my whole past made sense to me. Everything fell into place as to why things happen the way that they do. And most of us assume that relationships just happen to us. They don't.
And how many of you have got into relationships where it was as thought out and planned and, you know, strategic planning we heard about earlier? Who strategically plans their relationships? And then we wonder why they turn out to be a disaster, yeah?
If anything ever happened to us and we split up, before I went into another relationship, I would get a guy to do the DISC profile, the Enneagram test, everything, so that I knew what I was going into.
So what we're saying is we're here to teach you about romance. So the problem is there's two types of love. There's what gets called enchanted love, which is all this chemistry and stuff that happens across the smoke-filled room. It's great to have that chemistry, but wouldn't it be great to have that chemistry with somebody you actually knew and you had some idea that there was some compatibility there? It doesn't have to be perfect.
I know it doesn't sound very romantic, but really, seriously, do you think we'd be compatible if we had totally opposing values? But if you actually love yourself before you go into a relationship, 10 out of 10, then when you enter into that relationship, you don't think, oh, thank God somebody likes me. I'm very much in a place of vulnerability, but I know what I want now and I'm not scared to go for it. So I will only be my true, authentic self in a relationship because I wouldn't try to be what anyone else wanted me to be.
People are very inauthentic when they're trying to sell to us and market to us and, you know, get us to vote for them and things like that. Well, we do the same thing typically when we go out dating, don't we? We put on this mask, this veneer of who we think we need to be in order to be most attractive to the person that we think we want to be with. Most relationships start off like this. And the thing is, because we're scared of being alone, often we stick in and we hang on to that relationship. And how often do you hear about like people who go down the aisle together knowing that they're not with their soulmate, that they're not with their ideal partner, and having a suspicion that it's not going to work, yeah? So what we don't do is we don't learn from our mistakes. What we do is we pick up more baggage and take it with us into the next relationship. And we always tend to point the finger at the other person.
To blame,
and, how many relationships do you need to go through before you get the fact that the common denominator here is you?
And what's been amazing for me is that I can see that my relationship with Andy actually unfolds in direct relation to the energy I'm in myself. Well, there's so many differences between men and women, it's incredible. Do you think most women assume men think and feel the same as them?
Yeah.
They do, and they couldn't be further from the truth. Men are completely different.
Often we're not thinking at all.
Yeah.
What is the purpose of a relationship?
Keep your feet on the ground.
Keep your feet on the ground?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Share the bills.
Just learning how to make it better and better, and we've grown so that it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, and the honeymoon actually gets better and better and better. We really have had to look in the mirror, and I now understand that the main purpose or the higher purpose of a relationship is in learning how to become a more loving person. None of it was about Andy making me happy.
I mean, the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself.
And of course, he's a very logical male. I'm a very emotional female.
We were gobsmacked. It's like, ouch, every 5 minutes.
Well,
the number of assumptions that we all make in life, in all forms of communication, never mind just our intimate ones, is just incredible.
I can honestly tell you that there is nothing that we've got unresolved now. But we've had to work through that, haven't we?
How many of you, put your hands up, if you feel you are really honest and truthful with yourself first of all, and then with your partner if you're in a relationship?
So it's wonderful now, because I know he shares his absolute truth with me. The great stuff feels great because I know there's no act behind it. If I look for all the things that annoy me about Andy, which there aren't many,
They do exist though.
Of course, that he says things about me that annoy him as well. But if I focus on those, then he will see it, he will know it instantly, and he will just become annoyed, and actually he will become exactly what I'm looking for, and vice versa. So
there's a huge range of emotions, but we actually only calibrate in one place in any one moment. If you're doing things that are making you feel fearful, if you're thinking things that are making you feel fearful, you can't be up here in the love end of the spectrum. It sounds really simple, but it's hugely profound. So if you can find ways to keep yourself in a loving place more often, or all the time, you can't do that stuff anymore.
Gifts don't really do it for me. So if you bought me a gift, I wouldn't really feel loved, but if you gave me quality time, I would love. But if you don't know what your partner's language of love is, then how are they going to feel loved?
I think one of the huge things that we've learned is something called the Enneagram, which is a personality typing system. That the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself for starters. If you can get that right, you're kind of 80% of the way towards being able to have a great relationship. It's really a journey of developing self-awareness, first of all, which most of us don't have enough of. Then self-acceptance, and most of us are beating ourselves up too often and not loving ourselves enough. So you go from self-awareness, increase that, increase your self-awareness, love yourself more, and then take that person into the relationship. Another way of looking at it, which I like, is that as we're born into the world, we are dependent, and we learn to be independent. But in the process of doing that, we also develop our ego. So as we've learned to become independent and we've developed this ego and these defence mechanisms, that's like a block to the third level, which is to become interdependent. And for guys to learn to be vulnerable, as well as women to learn to be vulnerable, is hugely powerful. It's immense. It's all part of trusting and loving and sharing. So it's part of learning to become interdependent again. Yeah.
Actually, nothing can hurt me now, but I've never been so vulnerable in my whole life, because I provide my own happiness, and Andy adds to it, and he shares in it. And it's amazing because I'm unattached to him, and I'm unattached to a future with him. I have a vision for what we want, and everything that we want to live, but I am not attached to spending the rest of my life with him. I don't even know how I feel about marriage now, because learning to become so unattached to life and living unattached about outcomes in life and living very much in the moment. Marriage is almost for me like, you will spend the rest of your life with me whether you like it or not. There's a lot of transition for me to learn how to become vulnerable, and learning that it wasn't a weakness, it was actually a huge strength.
It's so enlightening to understand your behaviour in that way. It's very freeing.
It's magical because I shared all of that with him. I look at him and I truly feel I know this man. Yeah, really, really understand his heart and soul. Because if you haven't got through your fears, forget the relationships for now, okay? Do the fears and the beliefs first, and then once you love yourself 10 out of 10, then go into a relationship. But never look for a relationship to fix you or make you better, because the only place that you can actually be in the relationship at that point then is from fear.